Everyone's in attendance, so we have a quorum. Do we have any comments from the public? Doesn't look like it. Item 3, any adjustments to consider? Anything, Dan? Okay. Thank you. All right, on our consent agenda, items 4 through 9. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion needed? Any comments?
Tax preliminary totals with you.
Okay. What page would that be on? Get to that.
The Montgomery Central Appraisal District has implemented their new software. And we're not balancing, so these totals for your preliminary totals, you're at 11%.
Where are you? I'm sorry, 16 is,
18.
yeah, okay. Okay, let me get caught up. Hold on. Yeah, I didn't look like a,
That's
okay,
the
tax
preliminary.
report
Yeah, the preliminary.
17 and 18. Are we on 18 then?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Right now I'm with you. Thanks.
11 and a half, a little over 11.5%. Anyway, these totals, they're gonna be sending me updates to get the values close. As we hope. Also, there's a new Senate Bill 2 for the circuit breaker, which is the credit for commercial property or real estate property on real property, like if you have several lease homes. It's like a homestead exemption, but it's not a homestead exemption. It's called a credit and it's 20%. And it's only for from 2014 to 2000. Can't get it out, 24,
Okay,
26. It's a
Okay.
pilot program. We'll see what happens in 26. But it's 20% credit. Kind of like the homestead, but it's not a homestead. So that's new for this year.
Properties is 5 million.
The properties are 5 million or less, yes.
It doesn't affect large.
so is your question or maybe your information that we don't know if that's even in this number yet or
Those- They are in there.
it is in there, but it's still not tying out to,
You're in no.
we don't know.
This is Information. for you
Okay,
because They have to, never give us estimates in April of every year,
Okay,
okay? But these estimates are not, they're based on their software. $1 million software.
yeah, new systems are always fun. Okay,
It's just information.
okay. I had a question, and I think it's somewhere on the answer somewhere on page 16. And the question is around the bond money that from our last bond, the 6 point something million. Where does that money sit in these accounts here? The investment report for MUD 47. There's all these balances.
Texas compliance, so look on page 11. They've got the list of investments, the capital projects, it's in Texas.
I was on page 16. Is that
6.8.
is it the last one that has 6.8 million in it?
Yeah. 6870, 67.
Yeah.
5.5,
Sorry,
5.5.
That's what the
interest rate.
interest rate on it. And the ending, so it says the market value. Okay. I understand that a little better. Okay, that was just one of my questions. Any other questions on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? We had a motion.
We had that.
Sorry.
All in favor.
All in favor, say
Yeah,
aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And agenda is done. Okay, on to the regular agenda. We have the SJRA Woodlands Division report.
In your packet, pages 21 through 41. Pretty normal month, nothing out of the ordinary and no violations, but if you have questions on anything in the report, I'll be glad to answer. All I got.
Nothing you want to call out and tell us how great things are?
Yeah, they're great. I'll tell you how great it is. And I was doing this today and I was thinking about you. So we're going through and I'm still looking at the budget because the budget, we'll start presenting it next month. And so I'm going back and I'm double checking the sales and double checking production and I'm double checking water loss and preliminary, but it looks like we may look to adjust the water loss down a little bit. So the sales will come up based off the financials that you see in your packet for the Woodlands division. So just FYI, Mud 47, I look at it on a constant basis now because of you, so.
There you go. What a positive impact you've had on this community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris, but I hate to disappoint. Okay. Any questions for Chris? You all have any items to bring up or anything? Okay. Okay, item 11, discuss potential funding alternatives related to SJR Woodlands Division proposed infrastructure projects.
Yeah, this was the agenda we talked about last month in detail with all the options. No action tonight. We kept it on the agenda to have an opportunity to continue to discuss as needed. If you have any questions, you've had a month to kind of go through it. So nothing new to report, no action to be taken, but kept it on the agenda.
I have a question. I don't have the big double page report that you sent. I thought I had it in here. The one that had all the MUDs on it, right? That rolled through all the tranches of the funding mechanisms, the 4 different cases, right, Adam? One of the questions that's out there is, can we use that report? Yeah, that's the one you have it, Brian. Can we get a feel for what the first tranche does to rates if it flows through sewer rates? You know, a lot of people are calling this water rates out there, which it's not. Okay, so MUD 47. How this total proposed debt service racks up?
I can parse that out the first for you.
Yeah,
Do something like this just for first tranche, just to show
yeah.
that's helpful.
Well, I obviously it's on the agenda. I saw that as, you know, the agenda says wastewater treatment plant, water reclamation facility, number 2. So I thought we had a new deal going on, number 2, but it's number 1. So that's a bit of a surprise, but that's all right. We'll get to that in due order. So the question I think on some people's minds is, well, what does that tranche do? How can you model that out? Assuming there's some capitalized interest that's going to be put in that as well.
Right.
Is that something we can get? We have to wait a month to get that?
No.
Can we,
I think it can be done in there.
you can probably do it in your head, I would bet. But we'll let you spend some time studying it maybe.
But yeah, I mean, I can set it up just like this, just so you have it. And it looks like the all in, but it'll just be for the first tranche.
That'd be helpful, I think, for us. Because it's going to come through water rates one way or the other, I guess, unless a MUD decides to go and, oh, go ahead, you guys answer the question. Sure.
That's, I guess, with the 4 different scenarios. So, because there's 2 years of capitalized interest on the first tranche of bond issue, then there's some runway before you would need to start to generate the funds to pay the debt service of the bond issue. So it would give the districts, all the districts, time to decide, do you want to handle it through a rollback election like we talked about last month, or a flat rate, regardless of your usage, depending on whether you're residential or commercial, or through the retail rates. And I think the idea of the MUD specific bond issue really discarded that. So we really talk about 3 options. But we would have some time to be able to decide that, as we talked about last month. First, the most likely time that you would want to move forward with a rollback election would not be for next November, not this one. That would be a little too difficult to get out and educate the public. I mean, you know, if the board wanted to do it legally, could they? Yes, but it would be tough to be able to do all that education between now and calling the election in August. So you would have time.
Well,
But to answer your question, it wouldn't necessarily be Ryan Race. It could be otherwise.
Yeah, okay.
And all the voters chose to put it in, do a rollback tax election, then that 2 years cap I would clear you out of not putting it in the water and sewer rates at all.
This here, like I'm just looking at MUD 47. You're looking at the tax rate and all that. It says the average homestead is 368,000. This seems low to me. Is that, like, where do you come up with that
That,
number?
well, Jeannie stepped out, but that's.
The appraisal district.
Yeah.
provides it.
That's the latest route, the latest tax.
It's out of the
Keep in
homestead
mind that's
deduction.
with the homestead,
Okay.
20% homestead.
That's just the numerical average, I mean, of what's out there, right, on the tax rolls.
The homestead.
Yeah.
Doesn't include commercial, doesn't include second homes, rental homes, any of that.
Well, that'd be great if you could provide that and then send it out to us. We'll put it on the Google Drive, maybe put it on the Google Drive, and then Shelley can tell us when it's out there or whatever, and we can go study that a bit. That'll be helpful, I think. Yes.
Hopefully it should be done by the end of this.
Yeah.
And you can.
Anything new on, since then, on the funding ideas, and
No,
has that come up that anyone's been chatting about?
I received a handful of comments and opinions, but nothing that moves the needle, nothing that changes anything. Folks were, commenting on, I really like this, or I really like that, or maybe is there a way to do a combination? There was some of that. Could we do a little bit of this and a little bit of that? Some on tax, some on rates, things like that. There were some inquiries about that. And the answer was, yeah, we can do whatever the MUDs and community would want as far as the funding options, if you do go back to the voters with a rollback tax election. And obviously, we have some survey things that we're going to be working through in the PEC.
Yeah.
I don't know what was on the bigger picture.
Okay.
And I think your 47 share is somewhere right around 6 million or just over 6 million roughly of the 40. So it's not 40 to just to 47.
Oh, no. No.
It's about 6.2%.
Yeah,
In rough numbers.
15% or ish.
15-point issue. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions? Okay. That's 11. It's pretty easy. All right, number 12. Water reclamation facility number 2. We're gonna rehab it too?
One.
Okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay, number 1. So surprised to see this on here, but can we talk about this a little bit?
So this is the supplemental agreement that the River Authority had provided in January for a proposed bond issue, not by the River Authority, not to exceed $40 million over a 30-year period, maturity period over 30 years for the design and engineering plant number 1. And the River Authority had asked for a vote on the supplementals, I believe, to March 2nd.
March or April.
And we wanted to make sure that we went through the process of looking at what, not just this plant, but also all the other potential components that, to be determined when they need to be done, AC water lines, for example, and some of these other components, to see, okay, if all these things needed to be done, to be determined whether they do and when, how could you pay for it? And that's what last month was about. It was go through that, see what those different options would be. So now that we've gone through that process, there were some directors that were ready to go ahead and felt like they had enough information to take action on the supplemental agreement. So Eric went ahead and put it on all the agendas, but we've been telling each board through the day that the first decision point is, do you feel that you have the information you need to decide whether that you should be moving forward with a new plant as opposed to repairing individual components? If you do feel like you have enough information for that, and the answer is to go forward with a new plant, then you're in a position to be able to consider taking action on this supplemental. If you're not, and you need more information to determine whether or not repairing individual components is necessary as opposed to going forward with a new plant, then you're not ready to take action on the supplemental agreement. And there was, discussion at the trustee meeting last week about, some of those questions that I know, you were interested in that. And the trustees voted to approve up to $50,000 for the River Authority to go through and do a PV analysis of replacement of component parts versus the replacement of the plant. And what would that tipping point be where replacement of components on a present value basis would be more expensive than going forward with a new plant? And I think Freezen Nichols is looking at 30 days to have that information. So that's out there. But, some districts have been ready to go ahead and move ahead. They don't need that information. They were a part of the stakeholder process or, what have you. But that's each board's decision as to whether or not you're ready to move forward or not. So that's kind of the background.
Okay, thanks for that. I think it's also important to recall some of the conversation at the trustee meeting where we're also just talking about what if we, so we're about to engage the residents on a large communication program to tell them about what's going on and what's kind of potentially out there. There's things out there in the news and in the kind of out there anyway, but we have a year, kind of almost a year-long program set in place to really interface, become transparent, and talk to the residents, inform, listen, and help us decide how we move forward. There was also discussion about, well, what if we delay the decision to do one or the other? That's when at the trustee, and I think we saw here at the board, a list of projects that would be needed if you delay. And if you just keep pushing this out, there's some things we have to do with no decision. And that would be pushing out even the $40 million design, preliminary and final design cost number out in the future. Everything gets more expensive in the future was the message, and therefore, you're going to spend a lot of money doing that. But it was hard to make that decision, we felt, because there was no numbers associated with what you're going to spend. So that was also another piece of it, was just not doing the rehab, but fixing it until you can decide what you want to do, right? So also that piece. And I think that for us, for some of us, that was important to get that analysis done, to get a feel for what that cost looks like. There's a trade-off there, and it was agreed that we're going to do an NPV analysis, not just a total cost of dollars out in the future, which I think is a big improvement. Picking all the numbers around that NPV is a thing as well. So that's out there as well as kind of a sample point. So I guess the question for us is, are we ready to make this decision and bring this up?
I'm not.
I think I'd like spend the 50,000 and let's see what that report comes back and make our decision after that, the repairs and that. I would be interested in reading that.
Yeah.
Serious.
Okay. I'm in agreement with that. I don't think we're ready. The whole idea.
50,000 is chump change.
Well, yeah.
And if it gets us some good information that we can translate into a better story to tell our constituents, I'm for that.
Okay. So that'll be a defer for us on this month.
Next month, and we'll see what's brought back to the trustees and then reevaluate.
Okay, good.
So the $50,000 study, that's a for sure thing, or that's still on the
That was authorized. That was
Okay.
authorized at the trustees.
Okay. And 30 days is not a long time, but it's enough to give us
Yeah.
some more information to make a big decision.
Yeah. Well, I feel it's an important data point. for us to just consider. If we just launch into design, we're essentially going down that path, and it's really going to be really hard to come off that path. And I feel we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit on that. So, okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Ed?
50,000 expenditure does not get you refined cost estimates on the list of projects that was on that project plan sheet. It gives you a tipping point, break point of, it's going to give you I'll say a ballpark number, somewhere between probably 35 and $60 million of what it costs to rehabilitate in place. And what they're also supposed to be able to tell us is if that allows for a 10-year delay, deferral, or a 15-year delay in doing a new plan. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, all the rehab's done, at the end of that rehab period, there's still going to be the need for a new plan because you're still dealing with a lot of old technology, old piping, old basins on the existing site. So the reason I'm mentioning this is I don't want you to think that in 30 days, you're going to get such a refined cost estimate that it's clear as a bell. It probably is not going to be. It's probably going to tell you, here's what it's approximately going to cost to rehabilitate and buy you so many years.
And how far along is the property purchase process gone so far?
We've made, I think we've sent letters to all the property owners. Some have come back to us and said, let's talk. We have not secured any appraisals. We have not secured right of entry to do surveys, appraisals, but we are making contact with property.
And are you going to keep in that direction? You're going to keep trying to buy property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was approved back in March of last year by the trustees, and the money's in the budget to move forward.
So if the project's delayed, like, is there a legal thing where you, like with eminent domain, do you don't have to use that? It can sit there for a while.
Correct.
Okay. Who's doing this analysis for $50,000?
Priest Nichols, the consultant that's been doing phase 1, phase 2.
Are they gonna do like different scenarios, like, most likely and the high cost and the low cost, like there's conservative and then there's aggressive or most likely.
That's getting into too much detail.
Okay.
It's, like I said, they're going to look at certain components of those 2 columns and identify the major costs of those major components. So for example, on that list is aeration basins 1 and 2. That was part of the 2017 bond issue back in 2017. We set that aside when we started the strategic plan because we didn't want to spend the $15-16 million on something that may be wasted. So we know that project alone, it's probably escalated up to 20 million. So there's 2/3 of a minimum $35 million cost. Another big item on there is the plant piping, all the yard piping that connects all the basins, and that's all ductile iron pipe that's been in the ground 40, 50 years. We've got other places where ductile iron pipe has been used near Lift Station 5 and up near Lift Station 1, where the pipe is paper thin. Corrosion is hitting. We can't even put a camera in that pipe because the water's so dirty. You wouldn't see anything, but we know that there's going to be some repair and replacement of some of that piping. So that could be another 10 million just in piping alone. So we're trying to identify the key components that are major cost items and not worry about the little things like replacing a valve here or there or a pump in a lift station, because those are small costs compared to a basin or yard pipe.
And in the rehab, I asked you a question in the trustee meeting about when was the technology picked, right? Selected by the stakeholder group and y'all. And I suspected it was early on in the process, and you confirmed
I
that.
think it was around meeting 5.
And then once you pick the technology, it kind of sets you on a path that really made it almost impossible to contemplate new technology on the existing facility. The question that's kind of come up is, can you rehab on the existing facility without buying new land? And if you'd started a couple years ago, or if you have some more lifetime left, can you do that over the next 5 years? And replace pieces of it. That's what typically manufacturing facilities do. They replace kind of in place. And I know you have the basins that don't work now, 1 and 2 or A and B, and you need them if you're going to take them out of service. You don't have a backup. I understand all that, but can you help me with that?
Well, like clarifiers, there's a operating gear that has the arm rotating in the clarifier. That's easily replaced. That equipment typically lasts 20, 25 years before you need to replace it. Aeration basins, that's a little bit different story, because on aeration basin 3, we have a wall structural issue with one of the walls.
Yep. Yeah, I saw it.
And so as you walk by, you can see the supports holding it up, and then basin 1 and 2 are out of play. Going back to the clarifiers, we've been notified by the TCQ after Hurricane Harvey that those clarifiers cannot meet peak demand. And you've heard us say that that's a violation of our permit if you cannot meet peak demand with the existing clarifier. What that means is you don't have enough detention time in your system before you discharge your high flows. Same thing with aeration basins with 1 and 2 out of play. We don't have the capacity required to meet our permit requirements.
Have we had a violation on the back end of the plant on discharge?
No, we haven't, but you heard, excuse me.
Yeah, with the tax day flood, Memorial Day flood, Harvey, Imelda, generally any named storm at wastewater plant 1 has resulted in a peak flow violation. So there's been half a dozen, I guess, or so there for quite a while.
I imagine a lot of facilities had that, right?
A lot of cases,
And
they
those
do.
are-
The other 2 facilities in the Woodlands do not. We can actually get the flow through there. They are newer, like Plant 2 built in 2003, 2004, Plant 3 in 98 or so. They were built deeper to handle more peak flow. Plant 1 being essentially antiquated, there's not as deep of clarifiers, and with aeration basins 1 and 2 being out of service, we don't have the buffer capability.
Yeah.
And obviously,
So if you put 1 and 2 back in service, you have a little bit more capacity.
Not enough. Basins 1 and 2, I think total combined capacity is about 2 to 3 million gallons, but we can only effectively treat about 300,000 gallons a day due to the way they were designed. Because when they were designed, that's not the original intent. They were supposed to be oxygenated, super oxygen, or whatever this term was back then.
super oxygenated.
Yeah, that word. Then they were converted to what they are today. And so therefore, the baffles and everything else does not allow for the oxygen transfer.
I think the point is, there's a desire to try to figure out how to not spend as much money as possible and to defer costs out there without having failures, clearly, right? And the residents would much rather you spend their money later than sooner. And I know you have an obligation to consider the facility and its operational integrity and ability to meet the future requirements as well. But that's kind of the tug of war we have here is debating that, and how do other facilities do this? How do other municipalities do this? I can't imagine they're all building new facilities and buying land and plopping down new things. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. Yeah. So it's just what we're all trying to understand, having not been part of the kind of the first part of the conversation.
Consent decree because their wastewater system is in violation.
Yeah.
And they started out thinking it was a $2 billion operation to replace, and it's closer to 9.
Yeah. And, we have budgets for water that get spent on water and not get spent on other things because we're not a municipality, fortunately. So
I think go back on something you had said just a minute ago. Like Brian was saying, the agreement is to move forward with a new plant. we have gone down the path of MBR, but other MUDs have asked the question as well, is it better to keep the same technology rather than a new technology? So until you actually do design, it's not too late to go back and say, just give us an updated cost estimate of the traditional or what we have now conventional versus the advanced MBR technology. So that is an option moving forward. Yes, we want to use new plant, but let's determine which technology is best going. Just FYI.
So in your opinion, a new site is required no matter what?
It will be needed because of the footprint necessary to ultimately build the plant. And then also because some of the basins that we're talking about touching were designed under the old TCQ rules. There's now new rules that require a certain amount of redundancy every piece of equipment out there. And this site doesn't necessarily have room for that.
Okay.
A lot of factors.
Yeah.
Well, I love the idea of net present value and to help us. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah, I feel like we have to have that. It's hard to message to the community without having some comparisons of this is what this alternative costs you or forces you to consider. And I'm glad we're not going to kind of make a decision that preempts that analysis and go. And I think we're all in favor of having the residents weigh in on this as far as funding.
There was a question asked at the last meeting, whether if SRA went and sold bond, would they go to the voters for approval? And Brian, the answer is no, because we sell revenue bonds. We do not sell general obligation tax bonds.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions for the? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it very much. Okay, item 13, any update on the Bear Branch Research Forest Drive drainage improvement project?
My last time to be back in front.
All right.
Yes, we received the consultant's estimate last Friday. We've done some preliminary review. We're going back through it. The reason we're not bringing it forward is because it's a pretty healthy estimate of construction. I've been quizzed a couple of times of, well, how healthy? And it's like 3 times the amount of money that's added. So we're taking another look at it. We're going to visit with the consultant and find out how he got to this number and why. But we won't bring it back until we know that it's at least a reasonable number, even though it may be higher than that. So to remind you all, there's a $10 million no interest loan, and then there's a $1 million grant. So a total of $11 million is available. There's about $2.5 million, $3 million that's tied up in engineering and other expenses. So that leaves roughly $8 million for construction. And this number is almost 3 times that. We have some work to do with consulting.
And in your practice, do you all use different consultants and try to spread that out a bit, or at least get multiple bids to make sure you're getting apples to apples and getting the best estimate?
Well, generally the firm that is hired to do the analysis, they'll prepare the information. They should be talking to contractors and find out what is current cost for excavation, hauling off material, or clearing a site. You know, we've got 3 detention ponds proposed on this, and it's a heavily wooded site. So all that timber has to go. You know, back before COVID, some of that cost clearing the site per acre was around $4,000 to $5,000. The numbers double. So that's one of the things that we need to find out who he's talking to and why he's got some of the unit prices in there.
Sure.
But they should be talking to contractors, and they also should be looking at what some of the recent bids of some of the work are pricing at. And flood control is doing a fair amount of work. So, and this is similar to flood control work. So there should be some information out there that the engineers can use to put together a reasonable estimate.
What kind of time are you up against? Do you have a couple years to make a decision?
We've been at this a couple of years, just getting all the entities to sign up, all those that are interested to sign on. So I think at some point we'll need to go back to the Water Development Board and make certain that they're still on board with us working through this. We are reporting to them regularly on progress, and they're seeing cash outlays reports where money's being expended, so they know work is being done. We're down to the point where we've got two alternatives. We've got cost estimates for the alternatives. We just need to refine those costs before we bring them back to Mud 67 and start having more in-depth conversation. Thank you.
All right, Brian, attorney's report or?
This evening briefly, one, the SGRA lawsuit against the cities of Conroe and Magnolia. You may have seen the paper copies outside or got the electronic versions of Google Drive, but the River Authority did have a very successful result in the Texas Supreme Court, where they prevailed in the argument that governmental immunity did not apply to their lawsuit against the cities. That's probably going to be a case that will be cited for many years in our industry, because governmental immunity is one of the first defenses that any city, MUD, what have you, will put up when they're sued. And so finding what the parameters of that governmental immunity are is, there's a lot of that will be taken out of this lawsuit going forward of that opinion. So believe it or not, though, now the case is just now being remanded back to district court for trial on the merits. So these multiple years that have been going on in this lawsuit have not touched the merits.
But all procedural.
All procedural. So it's a fool's errand at this point to guess how much longer that's going to take.
So basically, this is boiling down to governmental agencies can't sue another governmental agency.
That's what the Supreme Court ruled on.
Yeah, that's.
Yes, that the River Authority can sue, and the cities are subject to liability on the contracts. Now it goes back to, based on the contracts, is Conroe and Magnolia liable and responsible for the rates of the contract? So that's next, and maybe this moves the needle on possible settlement. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Conroe's having a big mayor and city council election right now as well, so don't know how that's going to play into this. And then also, if it goes forward with litigation, if the two parties continue on the previous path, all these issues at trial would probably be appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court to the extent they could. So. So that's it on that one. The other item is, you may have seen in the news last week that the EPA has adopted final rules regarding 6 PFAS chemicals, the forever chemicals. There is a little bit of a lead time before monitoring requirements begin. That's going to be in 27. And then enforcement violations will commence in 2029. There's been some articles that have speculated that the cost to implement testing and treatment nationwide could be $1.5 billion or more per year. So
Who's responsible for that?
water suppliers.
Okay. Oh, great.
Unfunded.
Well, I was gonna, well, but the other thing is that, I mean, this sounds really great. I mean, the EPA is notorious about, this is great. How do they propose monitoring all of this? And is this a governmental agency that will come in and will now monitor it?
The individual water producers and providers will be responsible for that.
Okay.
So there's already been some initial testing through UMCRs for, I think, some, but maybe not all 6 of these contaminants. River Authority doing some, Woodlands Water doing some, and so far, I believe from what I've heard, the testing has come back fine for the Woodlands, but it's going to probably be more robust under this new rule for these 6 contaminants. And we'll see. I mean.
So that's
groundwater-
passing more costs along to the consumer for this testing. Okay.
There's been some chatter that there could be maybe $1 billion or so available nationwide from the federal government in one of these recent bills that were passed. But if these numbers of $1.5 billion per year are accurate, that's not.
Not a lot.
not
Yeah.
gonna-
Yeah.
So more to come on that. That just came out last week.
How does that kind of feed into our decision to not join the class and any of that? Is this something we thought was going to progress anyway, right?
Yes.
EPA would
Yes.
get caught up and
Correct.
now you know kind of, oh, now what you have to do, and that feeds into, well, was that class action made sense or not?
Yeah, I don't know that it changes the analysis there in terms of that decision. I know that was, part of our closed session discussion. But we did not have the regulations.
Yeah.
Out there yet, so we'll see. And we don't know what our results are. I mean, what you have to do in terms of water production requirements will depend on what your test results come back with. If they're under, you don't have a lot of additional treatment costs. If they're over, then you could have a lot of additional treatment costs.
Does the EPA designate what kind of testing you do and who's authorized and permitted and allowed and licensed to do the testing, I assume, right?
That's probably a little more detailed in week one.
Okay.
But
all right.
more to come there.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I have on the attorney's report. Happy to
Okay.
answer any other questions.
Any other questions?
On
To the
page,
extent that I can.
there's a little summary of the testing he's referring to that we have been doing on page 47. We provided it each month. It just gives more of a schedule of where the testing is with each district. And so far, those districts that have tested have not found any.
I know you'd said that, you kind of verbally said that, but
And it's still the case.
Okay.
We'll continue to be doing that as we go through the schedule of testing throughout all those MUDs listed, all of the.
is our current lab the one that we use? Are they the ones doing that? They'll pick this up probably?
There's multiple labs, but
That's one of them. Okay.
I think there's 200 plus of these different PFAS chemicals.
Yeah, there's a laundry.
So
And these are six, you said.
6, and we've done for 29, whether that 29 is all of the
Yeah.
6 or none of the 6. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, anything else for Brian? Okay, excellent. Number 15, consider and act upon the updated drought contingency plan, pages 43 to 44 in our packet.
That's the resolution. So in 2019 was the last time that was submitted a drought contingency plan and water conservation plan. It's required every 5 years that those be updated or at least looked at and then resubmitted before May 1. We've been working with SDRA and a separate consultant that we use that's going through the drought contingency plan and water conservation plan. There are really no items to note, changes in the drought contingency plan. The triggers, drought contingency stayed the same. There are some changes that we made to the water conservation plan, namely the addition of AMI meters that didn't exist in 2019, last time we submitted it, as well as documenting some of our water conservation, public education reach that we've been pretty aggressive on the last couple of years. So those are some of the changes that we've made for the water conservation plan.
And so these are the same plan for all the MUDs. Essentially, we have one plan, I assume, for all the MUDs.
That's
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I need a motion to approve and submit.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Okay. We go in closed session, okay? GRP, item 17.
So on your
Discuss the surplus funds on GRP surface excess funds.
page 45, to look at. This, we can be looking at that as I kind of summarize what has occurred. The GRP committee made recommendation to the board of directors for Central River Authority, who approved the usage of surplus funds that were created from the drought and from the Quadvest monies. 14 million of the surplus was designated to buy down some debt on the GRP. That will, our understanding, will equate to approximately a 3-cent decrease in the utility in the wholesale rates. And then an additional 12 million was approved to be credited back to the participants of the GRP. And so that's what you see here on 45, which is the Woodlands Mud splits of the 12 million that was credited back to the, I think there's 80, is there 80 GRP participants? So this is, I think 11, includes 386. So 47, just over, I guess, 535,000. That's the number coming back to 47. So we have received the credit memo from SRA, and we will process that through your financials, your April financials. So you should see that credit on your financials next month.
So the participants who haven't been paying their bills, are they getting refund?
Yes, sir, they are. Because their debt is on the books as fully owed. And until the litigation is over, it's considered that they owe the amount of pumpage fees, penalty, and interest. So they were given their pro rata share credit.
Okay. Asked and answered. So it looks like the Woodlands is getting about 26%
of $12 million.
But I thought we used almost more than that as far as the surface water. It looks like we do each month. Am I missing something?
You're 50-50 blend, but that 26% is of all 80%.
Usage and not just service.
So when we see that, like the little report, oh yeah, okay, maybe you're getting to it. Page 35, it says GR surface water usage in gallons, February of 2024, total 228. We're more than half of that, but that's just of those you've listed. There's still a bunch underneath there.
To give you an idea, the total demand of GRP is about 21 billion gallons a year. Of that 21, only about 5 billion is surface water. The vast majority of the water sales is for groundwater outside of the Woodlands.
And because they contributed heavily towards the drought.
Yeah.
They had heavy
Okay.
pumping.
Okay. All right. That helps me square all those numbers away. Thank you. All right. Well, that's good news. And what did you say the result of the debt buy down does to rates?
3-cent decrease.
3-cent across the board? Okay. Missed that.
We ever get Congress money, or when we get Congress money, we'll do
Same thing. Yeah.
We'll have a party.
Okay, good. I'll make that happen. Okay, thank you. All right, thanks. Thanks, Ed. General manager report, Eric.
All right, good evening. In your packet, just wanted to point out, did include a customer thank you that we did receive. I like to include those. We do get a fair amount of them each month, so appreciate that and all the hard work from staff. Wanted to point out that the township approved a proclamation, Bruce Cunningham Day, in honor of his passing on March 27th. And so that was the nice proclamation. Wanted to point out that AWD has a spring seminar this Thursday evening. The speaker is Mike Turco, General Manager of Harris Galveston Science District. Should be very valuable update and information. Early bird has passed for registration, but you can still register if you are able to attend. Myself, Shelley, and a handful of other directors across the MUDs are going to attend. So it should be a good event. Let's see, I wanted to point out, we had put in the budget last year to do some improvements to the building. We did finish the roof replacement about 2 weeks ago. We then subsequently had a water intrusion, not roof related, off the balcony over here, and have some additional damage that we're gonna need to deal with in walls and carpeting, et cetera. So something that we'll be working on to try to improve that or repair that and we've identified the issue. We need to figure out how to fix it.
What's the issue? It was a Tuesday night rain, I guess, that came in there.
Real heavy.
Yeah.
Real heavy. Yeah, there's water that's essentially backing up on the balcony, coming through the doors and coming out and going all the way across here. It's not good. And it's making.
It's that balcony, right? It's the roof, the floor of that ceiling, yeah.
So we did confirm that it's not related to the brand new roof.
Thankfully, you got that roof done. Oh my gosh. That rain.
Well, the other leaks that we had didn't surface that we used to have before the roof was repaired. So we do know that worked. So we've got water coming in from other roofs. Wanted to point out something that you're gonna start seeing as we look at some additional improvements to the building and the look and feel is our first modified or updated map using a little bit different look than you're used to. You can see the new version there on the wall versus the old version behind Adam and Brian. Ironically, that version, the newer one, is actually cheaper than trying to build the one on the floor. Yeah, that is dry erase, so that we're working to get some dry erase stuff up there so we can use it as needed. But probably we'll see us utilize that look elsewhere in the building. We're looking at sprucing up the entry, maybe doing some interactive stuff for the community up front, but kind of working through that right now, John and I. But that's kind of the first. That was a little experiment, and I think everybody's liking the look. And finally, I will kick it over to John and talk a little bit about communication and outreach.
Good evening. Page 51 in the packet for communications report. I just want to touch on a couple of things briefly this evening. We have a messaging on the upcoming election. As you know, we did the Bill Stuffer, and then we've done some website updates and some social media posts. Everything is either pulling directly from a Montgomery County election website or pointing to the website. So there's that. Outreach calendar on page 53. We have been out and about. Probably not on there coming up. Eric's going to be out on a couple different opportunities here in the near future. And then finally on Holloway. So our infrastructure communications consultant, we're on the precipice of implementation. So the River Authority will vote on, hopefully to approve the next work order, which will fund phase 3 and 4, which will put the strategic plan into the implementation phase. So if that is approved at the end of this month, then we should begin implementing at the beginning of May. That's good. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, John. So wrap it up, Eric. Okay. That's 19. So we're going to recess
Anything on
to
trustee?
closed session.
Kind of hit.
Oh, and the trustees, I'm trying to think, we hit what I was gonna bring up. Yeah.
Hit it all.
Let me just check one more. Yeah, that was it. The question about the land acquisition was brought up, Craig, but you asked the same question, so that was updated. Yeah, that's it. Okay, sorry, I missed that one. Now, number 20, go to the closed session. We need to do that. Okay, thank you. Be back shortly.
6:54, we'll recess to closed session. Eric needs to stay. Everybody else is